from St. Louis Public Radio. This is St. Louis on the Air.
And, it seems like a lot of conversations were just happening behind doors. And as to what the Senate will do, it's a possibility that they look at this change and go, well, that's not what the governor wanted, and they move it back to what it was. So many, they get a signature. Maybe they don't know where their voting district is, or maybe they don't live in the state. So many signatures, even if they're collected, do get thrown out.
I'm Sarah Fensky. Last week was a very long week at the Missouri legislature, and joining us now to tell us what happened is St. Louis Public Radio Statehouse reporter Sarah Kellogg. Sarah, welcome.
Hi, Sarah. Good to be here.
So, Sarah, the Senate ended up in day after day of filibuster last week. What was going on there?
It was all about redistricting, and it's funny you mentioned Valentine's Day. I'm very grateful to my Valentine who went with me to the Missouri Senate on Saturday, because Monday evening through Saturday, on and off, senators talked about redistricting and how they want to see Missouri's congressional districts drawn, and they still have not reached a conclusion.
And when you say this was also happening on Saturday, in some cases, this went into the wee hours of the morning as well?
Definitely. Monday night and Tuesday night, they went in especially all night Monday. So I was listening until about 11 until I decided to go to sleep. And then they were at it again on Tuesday and went super late into the night. And then they kind of got into a rhythm of talking most of the day and then recessing or adjourning until the next day doing it again. So that was, some of the reporters were thankful for that. We could get some sleep. But it's really wild to see them still not reaching a conclusion.
Yeah, so this was fighting over this congressional map. How many seats do we anticipate being Democratic seats? Right now it's 2 versus 6 for Republican seats. And that was the plan they were looking at. Did this end up changing anything?
No. So Monday and most of Tuesday, was actually spent on the map. Senators did vote down an amendment that would have changed the House-approved map to be a 7-1 Republican majority map, but that was voted down by a vote of 24 against and 8-4. That's all the Democrats and quite a bit of the Republicans. And then there was a second amendment brought by Senator Stephen Roberts, who represents parts of St. Louis, which would have amended the 1st district that would have made it go more northwest. But that also was eventually withdrawn. And so after those pretty much first kind of day and a half, a lot of it was just spent stalling. And it seems like a lot of conversations were just happening behind doors on drawing these maps.
Okay. So we're at the point now where we were before all this filibuster. We have a 6-2 map, and they either need to approve it or do something else.
Yeah, it's still the House-approved map, which is the 6-2 map. No changes have been made to it yet. And right now there's a pause. So, we wondered if they would continue this. They're adjourned until Tuesday, at least the Senate floor is. And we wondered if that meant that, they would pick it back up. But a statement from Senate Majority Leader Caleb Rowden said that they are pausing the discussions on it. I was able to ask him, how long this pause is going to be, and that's yet to be determined. So right now they're going to focus on other things.
So the House has been focused on other things. They approved a supplemental budget bill last Thursday. What are some of the highlights from this?
Yeah, so this supplemental is billions of dollars. It's actually the first of 2 supplementals that the House is going to look at because this first one is kind of seemed as more of an emergency supplemental. So it has almost $2 billion in federal funding for schools, and the state has until March 24th to approve that particular funding because it's federal dollars. Also in this supplemental is money to fund the state's Medicaid program, including its expansion for the rest of the fiscal year, and then money for raises. And that was kind of the biggest change from Governor Parsons' initial proposal to what the House passed.
And so Governor Parsons was looking for some pretty sizable raises for what have historically been very underpaid state workers. Did they modify his plan?
They did. So under Parsons' initial proposal, all state employees would have received a 5.5% raise, cost of living adjustment, and then it would have also established a new minimum wage for state workers for $15 an hour. That's across the board. Now, what the House did is they kept the 5.5%, but now there's kind of going to be 2 minimum wages under this particular plan. So it's $15 an hour or 5.5%, whatever's higher, or $12 an hour or 5.5%, whatever's higher. And that's a big difference. According to House Budgetary Cody Smith, that's a difference of around $7 million in cost.
So who gets which of these two minimums? How is this going to work?
It depends on your job. So positions that are in what Chairman Smith called direct care positions, veterans' homes, other like state health departments, directly caring for people, they would receive this $15, new minimum. But for the direct care positions that are 12, or the non-direct care positions for 12 an hour, that could include a range of jobs. It's hundreds of jobs, custodial staff, cooks, clerks. We're not quite sure, what department that would break down, but it is a difference.
Okay. And so the House has now approved this. This is something where for this to be enacted, the Senate would have to get on the same page as well.
Yes, and I'm not sure if they will. The Democrats are actually really standing behind the governor on this. They're upset by this modified plan. And as to what the Senate will do, it's a possibility that they look at this change and go, well, that's not what the governor wanted. And they move it back to what it was. Parson himself is not a fan of it. He said so in a statement that he's really, he doesn't want to devalue any workers. He wants it to be at $15 an hour for all.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that one. The House also passed a resolution that makes several changes to the state's ballot initiative process. This is a big deal because this is frankly how some of the biggest changes in state policy have happened. Things like medical marijuana, the minimum wage hike, Medicaid expansion, a whole lot of policy comes out of these ballot initiatives run by citizens. What kind of changes would the House make to how this works?
So this is a House resolution. So ultimately, if this does manage to make it out of the legislature, voters in November would have to approve it. So I want to say that right away. Even if it makes it out of legislature, that does not mean this goes into effect. But what this does is it raises the number of signatures needed for an issue to get on the ballot. So right now it's 8% in 2/3 of Missouri's 8 congressional districts. Under this change, it would be 10% in each of Missouri's districts. So we'll start there.
So citizens gathering signatures, basically, they would force them to get more signatures from more places.
And it would end up being, thousands of more signatures because so many, they get a signature. Maybe they don't know where their voting district is, or maybe they don't live in the state. So many signatures, even if they're collected, do get thrown out. So it just really raises the number, like by a significant amount, the number of signatures needed.
So if this is approved, and it's very good that you pointed this out, this is something that would also have to go to voters. But if this goes through, it would make it harder for people to do these kind of citizen-led campaigns that change Missouri law.
Yes, and even then, if it managed to get on the ballot, right now under law, it would be a simple majority for it to go into law in election, and then this one would change it to a 2/3 majority. So not only does it make it tougher to get on the ballot, it makes it difficult to pass. But yeah, a lot of, as you said, Sarah, minimum wage hike, Medicaid expansion, medical marijuana, possibly recreational marijuana, that could be an upcoming one. All of these, it would be harder to get them on the ballot.
Well, this is one I know a lot of people are going to be watching very closely, and we're glad that you're there to keep an eye on it for us. I imagine you're hoping you're not going to have to work late into the night and next weekend as well. You feeling confident in your chances as you head into this new week in the legislature?
Well, I certainly hope so, at least for my sleep schedule. But, with the Senate taking a pause, I think it's very possible they're not going to do late nights if they're not discussing redistricting. But, that could be the supplemental, could be the next thing. So, I'm hopeful, but as always, we'll see.
We will see. Well, St. Louis Public Radio Statehouse reporter Sarah Kellogg, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much.
This episode was produced by Emily Woodbury with audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr. Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer. St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri, St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, honoring Arbor Day on April 26th, with an ongoing commitment to sustainable stewardship and conservation of Missouri's forests. ChooseWood.com.